Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind introduction. Let me start by thanking the organizers, the JusTN0W team, for inviting me to such a very wonderful assemblage of multidisciplinary experts and scholars. I quite appreciate that. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to share my views on what I think about equitable and sustainable solutions for Nigeria, but more particularly, how AI and digital twins and environmental strategies could help the Niger Delta. Now, I must start by saying that, look, Nigeria is a very big country. It is. Actually, it's about 8 times the size of the UK. And if we had to deal with Nigeria as a whole, we'll probably not live here. And there are lots of environmental challenges depending on the region of Nigeria that you belong to. But I've chosen the Niger Delta essentially because the Niger Delta actually is the energy hub of Nigeria. It also has essentially what I would call the vulnerability index that is higher than every other region. Being a floodplain, what that means is that it's much more susceptible to climate change impact, especially flooding. Now, environmental degradation, climate change, and energy poverty are quite tripodial issues and threats to Nigeria's socio-economic, environmental, and political stability, essentially. And as a developing nation with a rapidly rising youth population, of course, it's important that we see how we can deal with these challenges. At the 2021 UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, Nigeria committed to reducing its greenhouse gases, not at the scale of the UK and developing countries, but within the scope of Africa. Nigeria is actually one of the polluters, not because the country pollutes, but because of the activities of oil and gas companies, especially in the Niger Delta. Now, let's remember also that Nigeria is Africa's largest economy, and it has a key role to play in delivering the aims of the Paris Agreement on the African continent. And gas flaring, mostly from the Niger Delta, is the foremost means by which Nigeria contributes to the global percentage of deleterious greenhouse gas emissions. Now, Nigeria is highly vulnerable to climate change. The 2021 Notre Dame Global Adaptation Index ranks Nigeria as the 53rd most vulnerable country and the 6th least ready country in the world to adapt to climate change. Yeah, we think.
Guarantee it, but I can do
yeah, that's right. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Slightly.
No, it's like
From
go
current
yeah, we can use it.
And then you do this, and then you can.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's fast. Yes, please. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much. Please. Now, the previous speakers have done quite a lot in terms of explaining some of the concepts of artificial intelligence, digital twins. And by the way, I'm not a computer expert. And I must say, I feel more comfortable dealing with legal issues. But again, I've been put in this particular session where I have to talk about this, and we'll look at the conceptual analysis. The Niger Delta, for those of you who don't know, it stretches for approximately 150 miles, 240 kilometers from the north to the south, and spreads along the coast for about 14,000 square miles. Now, it's an ethnically diverse conglomeration of minority groups within Nigeria, comprising those you refer to as the Jaws, Urubus, Efiks, but on the whole, they are still minorities within Nigeria. It's predominantly a mangrove vegetation with thick rainforests, interspersed by tributaries and distributaries. Now, this map clearly shows the very sensitive vegetation of the Niger Delta. You have coastal sand plains, deltaic plains, lower Niger floodplains, and the rest of them. So the Niger Delta is actually very, very sensitive. It's actually regarded as one of the world's wetlands of note, and it's also very susceptible to flooding. Now, if we move beyond this, just take a look at a typical Niger Delta village in 1960. Of course, depending on which side of the divide you are, you could look at this as being dirt poor, or you could look at this as truly a very puritanical environment that is devoured of the pollution that has attended modern economic activities and sophistication. Now, we can look at this one. The Chinese say a picture speaks louder than 1,000 words. And this tells you essentially what oil and gas exploration and development have done in the Niger Delta. And it's particularly severe in the hinterlands of the Niger Delta. Now, equitable and sustainable solutions can be said to be those that are fairly and impartially help improve the socio-economic and environmental impact for both present and future generations. Of course, if we continue with our current harmful processes, we're clearly going to subject humanity to considerable devastation. So essentially, for equitable and sustainable solutions, we expect to embrace conservation, community, circular economy, and general sustainability. I won't bore you with this. You've had quite a lot in terms of artificial intelligence. You've also had quite a lot in terms of digital twins. But for environmental strategy, it's a set of initiatives that can reduce the impact of operations on the natural environment through products, processes, and corporate policies. Now, you can see the emphasis is always on corporate policies, but I would add to these government policies as well, because the corporations are not the only actors in the field. We've been told that AI and digital twins and environmental strategies hold enormous possibilities in defining an environmentally sustainable future for facilitating smarter decision-making through AI algorithms and advanced analytics. Of course, digital twins create virtual replicas of physical assets, enabling real-time monitoring, etc., etc. And we've been told that by harnessing their combined capabilities, of course, we can pave the way for a more equitable and sustainable and efficient world. But what's important, let's remember, is the Niger Delta. And it's about the Niger Delta that this particular presentation is centered on. And why are we looking at this? The context: 6 decades of hydrocarbon extraction, the good, the bad, and of course, the ugly. Now, again, it's arguable that there have been some positive impacts. Some will say host community development. If you go down to the Niger Delta, they'll tell you, no, it's not true, because those communities, most of them are actually worse off. Some will say it stimulates the national economy in some sense, yes, because revenue from oil and gas exploration and development is harnessed by the government, but whether it actually trickles down to those who matter in the local communities is an entirely different, altogether kettle of fish. And then you have corporate social responsibility initiatives by oil and gas companies in the Niger Delta. On the bad side, of course, environmental pollution, which we have seen. There is always economic dislocation and improvement, rather the reverse for local communities. We have a divide and rule tactics, which a lot of the companies employ in those local settings, and this induces considerable conflicts. Then we have marginalization of Niger Deltans and of course their communities. And in recent times, it has led to considerable youth restiveness. Now, the impact of petroleum development, the ugly side, could be seen when these local IOCs have completely divested to local companies. And we are suggesting that even after such divestment, the environmental, social, and governance problems that IOCs created can never be wished away. On the contrary, the entry of LOCs, local oil companies, would actually create new dynamics for host communities to confront entrenching Nigeria's dependence on oil and gas sector and complicating global efforts to decarbonize. Now, it's important to remember, well, you probably wouldn't know, but even before independence, the British at the time, who were the colonial masters, talked about the Niger Delta as truly a special place. And through the Willings Commission, they made a first attempt to address some of the grievances. The Commission's report in 1958 stated that the needs of those who live in the creeks and swamps of the Niger Delta are very different from those of the interior. And of course, it basically encouraged governments to look beyond the interiors and particularly look at what's happening in these in the deltaic environment. Now, you want to wonder then what has government done? There have been a few initiatives in the past. We've had the Niger Delta Development Board that was set up immediately after independence. Then we had the Niger Delta Basin Development Authority, and then we also had the Oil Mineral Producing Area Development Commission, and then the Niger Delta Development Commission, which is the one that is there at present. But all these various commissions, you wonder then, why are we still talking about the Niger Delta? Because they failed. They failed to actualize the dreams and objectives for which they were set up. And what was the reason? For the Niger Delta Development Board, organizational structure, and of course, political gratification. And you find for all of them, you get to see that either they lack enough data, which perhaps AI and digital twins, if it had existed in those days, would probably have helped. But of course, beyond that, we always had political interference in these organizations. Now, it is within this context that we begin to appreciate Nigeria's energy transition plan. In 2021, the NETP was created with COP26 support, prompting Nigeria's net zero commitment by 2060. And the plan, which has government's approval, presents a $23 billion dollar opportunity for supporting financiers and partners, and it attempts to promote a fair, inclusive, and equitable energy transition, amongst others. The energy transition plan is fortified on certain key objectives: poverty reduction, driving sustainable economic growth, and opportunities in the energy transition process, serving as a blueprint for Nigeria's commitment to its ambitions to reduce emissions. What that means is that the energy transition for Nigeria, of course, refers to a meticulously managed and equitable shift away from its dependence on fossil fuel towards a more sustainable and diversified economy that ensures social, economic, and environmental justice for all. There are key elements of it: economic diversification, social inclusion, environmental protection, policy support, stakeholder support, and of course, social ecological resilience, as well as environmental justice. Now, it will also take into consideration the sustainable development goals, which you all are very much aware about. Now, addressing these challenges requires a multifaceted approach involving all of government, private sector, civil society, local communities, as well as international partners. But it would also require the adoption of new clean technologies using AI and digital twins to reinforce environmental strategies. I think it was Cheryl Aljumi, combining the power of digital twins and AI for sustainable future, posits that using emerging technologies such as AI and digital twins can help organizations reach net zero and address other sustainability efforts. So who are those to use this within the context of Nigeria? Nigeria is a developing country. We don't have the technology that you have in the developed world. But those who are actually involved in oil and gas exploration and development could actually use AI and digital twins to reduce their environmental impact on the one hand. But more importantly, government agencies can also use these facilities if they are available. In fact, PwC estimates that the use of AI can reduce worldwide greenhouse gas emissions by about 4%, and that the use of AI for environmental purposes can also contribute up to 5.2 trillion USD to the global economy in 2030. And of course, like I said, I'm not going to go into the advantages or disadvantages of this. We've had quite a lot about this, including the challenges. We've had quite a lot about this, but I just want to emphasize that there is need for us to have a clearly defined set of objectives and requirements, identify and evaluate data sources, select and train appropriate personnel, engage users, and ensure that its adoption is rather much more available to the ordinary people. Now, I'm also of the view that we cannot rely exclusively on just technology. And for that reason, especially in the Niger Delta, we need much more than that. And I'm going to end with these final words, because I know that my time is almost up. Our lady there has already stood up for me. The Niger Delta sustainable development will depend on an efficient allocation and utilization of available resources, as well as the integrity of the people entrusted with the management of our resources from all the tiers of government. Nigeria operates a federal system, federal, state, and local governments. Now, what this means also is that the companies that operate in there will also have to incorporate all those very nice sounding environmental technologies. Now, integrating AI digital twins in implementing environmental strategies for equitable and sustainable solutions will require strong leadership, commitment, and collaboration across all sectors of the Niger Delta society to ensure a just transition that benefits all Niger Deltans and invariably all Nigerians resident in the Niger Delta and beyond. Thank you so much for your attention.